Hey folks, thanks for checking into the Neutral Zone Hotel. We are an unapologetically left-leaning podcast that explores hockey at its best and worst. My name's Benjamin. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Charge fan, both of which are currently on hold in favor of Team Canada. And I'm thrilled you've chosen to stay with us at the Neutral Zone Hotel today. Here to ensure you have a great stay are a couple of my colleagues, starting with Emily.
What's up, everyone? I'm Emily. I use they, she. I am a Colorado Avalanche and Buffalo Sabres fan, also on hold, but I'm the odd one out on the podcast today. I am a Team USA fan, somewhat begrudgingly.
I think that it is a interesting time geopolitically, and we are going to ignore it this episode, and I think maybe touch on it in the next one. We've also got Trevor here.
Hi, everybody. Trevor's here. My pronouns are he, him, a Vancouver Canucks and Vancouver Golden Knights fan. And like Canada coach Troy Ryan, I might have made a couple mistakes today by calling in sick to work to go to a watch party and then getting interviewed by CBC News immediately afterwards. We'll see if I get busted.
Incredible work.
No notes. All right, we're going to jump right into it, folks. We are going to do a couple short discussions, do a preview for the Olympic men's tournament, and then we're going to seg into a special feature. So we will start with a few short talks. Trevor, I know you wanted to talk about Jim Robson. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, Jim Robson was the voice of the Vancouver Canucks for about 20 years, from 1980 to 99. Did I get that right?
1970.
Yep. For 30 years. One of the most dominant voices in the sport, especially in Canada on the West Coast. And I know you wanted to talk about him, Trevor, so why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. So yeah, you touched on it perfectly. From the Canucks' first game in 1970 to the end of the 1999 season, he was the voice that a lot of people heard out here. And even though I came around a little too late for that, a lot of very important Vancouver Canucks moments happen with his voice, and we hear them a lot. It's not like we have a whole lot going for us up here, but the reason they stay with us so much is because those calls are just classic. Just the best way I can describe it is Bob Cole called the 1994 conference final between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Vancouver Canucks. And yes, this is a time when the Toronto Maple Leafs for some reason played in the Western Conference. If you ask anyone over here to name or to recite the Bob Cole goal call from the TV, no one knows it. Because no matter what, even though you can get Bob Cole for the rest of it, every single time we'll have Jim Robson CKNW call of Greg Adams, Adams gets the winner. 14 seconds into the second overtime, the Vancouver Canucks are going to the Stanley Cup final. I was 2 years old when this happened, and the fact that I can recite that says so much. His legacy and impact on not just Vancouver broadcasters, but broadcasters everywhere cannot be understated. And he was recognized for that. He got the 1992 Foster Hewitt Award and recognized by the Hockey Hall of Fame for that work. And, he's going to be missed by a lot of people out here, both old and young. And, the biggest shame, John Shorthouse was on Vancouver radio earlier today to talk about him. The biggest shame is Jim Robson lived to 91, which is a great long life, but he never got to see his beloved team get over that hump. Regardless, though, rest in peace, Jim. Thank you for everything and that you gave to the city and for the voices you inspired and will continue to inspire.
I think that the iconic sports announcer is an underrated part of the experience. I think where we would be as sports fans without some of those iconic moments, be it, Foster Hewitt or Doc Emmerich or Bob Cole Jim Hewson. And then I think about the voices of the generations to come, like Hannah Ryan Singh and Kenzie Lalonde and a few others. And the game has changed. Obviously, we don't focus on the regional as much as we used to. The radio commentary is not an ever-present friend on Saturday nights. But I think that the art of telling the game's story is in very good hands right now. And Shorthouse is one of those worthy inheritors. Certainly someone I think who does a great job on the West Coast. But I think that one of the reasons the Canucks become as big as they are is because they have an iconic voice to tell their story for the first 30 years. All right, let's jump quick discussion about today's marquee Olympic matchup, Team Canada versus Team USA. Normally, this is done at the end of the round robin, but due to the outbreak of novovirus on Team Finland, Canada has a game against Finland scheduled on the 12th. So a little bit of an interesting play where Canada's only had a couple games beforehand to really get going. Marie-Philippe Poulin was injured after a hit from Kristina Kaltenkova, and as a result, Canada goes in without their primary leader, and let's just face it, the best player in the world. Canada loses 5-0. They don't put up a lot of shots. Frankel gets a pretty easy shutout. Henri Desbiens is chased. And yeah, a lot of goals from the youth. Any thoughts?
I mean, I think this is one of the things we talked about last week in the preview was the U.S. was really leaning into their upcoming talent and saying, we know we've got an incoming changing of the guard here. We've got Knight and Coyne Schofield and a handful of other players who have either already announced or likely will be announcing in the next few years that they're done. So, the U.S. is leaning into bringing in that next generation. Canada did not do that. Canada brought a ton of older, more experienced players, and you can argue that, making sure you've got battle-tested players who aren't going to choke when the moment gets too big is a good thing, but you also are running the risk of putting your older, slower, more easily fatigued players out there against a bunch of kids who can run around all day and not get tired.
There are only 6 players in the PWHL who are older than I am, just to kind of make some people feel old or put a pin in it. 4 of them play for Team Canada, and that's not good. Poulin, of course, didn't necessarily play, so we'll put an asterisk on her. But another just interesting thing to point out, with Poulin out, you kind of have to wonder who's going to be your offense, like who's going to be doing the goal scoring. And in a game where you are behind for 56 minutes, do you want to take a guess at which Canadian forward led the team in ice time today?
I have no idea.
Blair Turnbull.
Oh my God.
Blair Turnbull played 17 minutes, 13 seconds. With Emily Clark and Laura Stacey just under 16. That's fine. Well, at least for those two. And then your top defense, Renata Fast at 24-26 and Jocelyn Larocque at 22 minutes.
You cannot be putting a 37-year-old out there for 22 minutes and expect her to make it through this tournament.
Katie Tabin was the 7th D, but you want to know who was 6th in ice time for the defenders of Canada? Claire Thompson at 14.5 minutes. And then your bottom line, Julia Gosselin, Kristen O'Neill, Jen Gardner playing 11 minutes, 10.5 minutes, and 6 minutes.
Gosling's already got 3 goals in this tournament.
Exactly. This is the future that Canada should be looking towards and is not utilizing. The U.S., as you guys alluded to, brought the young players to give them a shot, and they more than proved in this game that they're ready and they are going to take that next step. Canada looks to be way behind now. And it's funny, too, because in the 2022 games, there was a lot of talk about how the U.S. coach was playing a lot of the older veterans and was stapling the young players to the bench. And now the roles have been reversed. And once again, we're seeing that the one who's more willing to give the younger players a shot is the one who's going to come out on top.
Yep. And I don't know that this is at all indicative of what a potential gold medal matchup is going to look like. I'm not saying this game was totally meaningless, but it was not a particularly high stakes game for either team. My guess is even if Poulin isn't back for the medal rounds, Canada's going to try a little harder, play a little bit better, but it was not an impressive showing.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was at a watch party, as I mentioned earlier, and we had a couple fun side comments here and there. Like when Mashmeyer went in, we all let out a big old cheer. I might have gotten a big old cheer from the crowd when I yelled Mashmeyer shutout at the end of it. But it just really, I'm so curious for the decision, because even with that Finland game getting postponed, you gave Emmerich Mashmeyer the game against Switzerland. Yeah, she faces 6 shots. It's not like it's that big of a warm-up thing. But you then you get a day off. You played Czechia yesterday and then the U.S. the day after. And they started Annan and Debian for both of them. So why not give Debian Switzerland to warm up, give Mashmeyer Czechia so that ARD has some time off? Like, it just seems to be, between the ice time and that goaltending decision, baffling decisions by Troy Ryan. And between that and potentially the medal round performance, as well as the Toronto Scepters performance currently this season, I honestly don't think he's coming back to coach Hockey Canada after this. I think he's used up a lot of what's left.
I don't want to, like Emily said, I don't think this game is particularly meaningful nor instructive in terms of the stakes were not high. Both teams are guaranteed to get through to the semis. Canada will almost certainly go through as the second seed. But there is an unmistakable pattern over the past year of international hockey between the rivalry series and now this game, where Canada has not just lost the United States, but has been blown out in every single game. And it just seems to have happened. The last World Championships went to overtime. The rivalry series last season was very close, and Canada won, but it was close. It was, each game was a knife fight. If it continues that, if Canada makes the gold medal game and is blown out, or doesn't make the gold medal game at all, there will be buckets of figurative blood being spilled.
Yeah, that would be, if they don't medal, like, what level of international crisis does that trigger?
Massive.
I don't want to get too much into it. Let's wait for for 2 weeks to see what actually happens. But frankly, Team Canada, I think they're not in a crisis mode, but they're certainly at the precipice of it. And it will depend on the outcome of this tournament. And we'll see what happens against Finland. But the Americans played an exceptional game. Those young players are astounding. You got to give it to the Americans. They had a great game. So Canada didn't, but that's hockey.
I do want to raise one more point. The Swiss, who played the United States yesterday as we recorded 21 shots on the States, which is one more than the States allowed against Canada. And Canada only let the Swiss get 6 shots. So regardless of incredible effort by the States to just stifle any chance at Canadian offense. Like, they hit a completely new gear.
Yep. Okay, one more quick thing. The Panarin trade to LA for Liam Greentree, a conditional 2026 third that could become a second, and a conditional 2028 fourth that only appears if LA wins 2 rounds. Any thoughts?
Oof.
Yeah.
I know
Yikes.
LA is the only place he wanted to go, but that still feels like a real fleecing.
Yeah, and I think Drury gave himself a somewhat self-imposed deadline of before the Olympic trade freeze, and you kind of have to wonder if he could have maybe negotiated something a little bit better if he gave himself more time. But if LA was truly the only place Panarin was willing to go, I guess you take what you can get so you don't just lose him for nothing. I don't know.
You know, it's interesting though. You bring up a deadline in order to trade somebody. If only one of those existed. Oh wait, there is one, and it's not for another month or so. What a concept!
I think for me, the big concern here is the return. Liam Greentree he sure is a player. He was drafted 26th overall in 2024 by the Kings. That year, he had a big year in the QMJHL, putting up 90 points. He followed it up the next year with 119 points in 64 games. But this year has been regression city, 48 points in 37 games. So he is on
in the Q?
in the O, playing for Windsor.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, that's not good.
He's on track for about a 70 to 75 point season, so underscoring his draft year as an overager in the OHL.
Yeah,
that's not great.
That's really bad. Now that doesn't mean that he's going to be a bad player, not going to make the NHL, but it does mean that the Kings bought a legitimate superstar with a distressed asset and promises of some decent magic beans.
Well, good thing the Rangers are so good at developing prospects. Oh, wait.
Did you hear that the Rangers denied press access to Greentree on the Windsor Sports?
Yes.
So they may be a little afraid. Again, it's not necessarily that Liam Greentree will be a bad player or will not make the NHL, but it is very clear that even a few months of Panarin services in a non-NMC environment, where the GM had more ability to move to shop, the traditional return is a pick, player, and prospect for a guy of this caliber for one season. That didn't happen here. And not even close. And the most comparable one I can think of is when the Sabres traded Taylor Hall to Boston a few years ago. But they at least got a second out of it, a guaranteed second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bleak.
It's pretty bleak.
And then not to mention, too, Panarin immediately goes and signs a 2-year extension in Los Angeles on top of that, too. So now it's not like you only get the 1 year. Now you're guaranteed 2.5 seasons of Artemi Panarin for, a distressed prospect and a handful of magic beans.
Yeah. So I don't think Chris Drury is very good at his job.
It would not seem so.
I don't think anyone said that before, but you've heard it here first, folks.
But you're brave, and that's going to be the first.
All right, folks, we're going to take a short break. But before we do, just keep in mind you can hang out with us on Bluesky at neutralzonehotel.bsky.social. Come join our Discord. Talk about the Olympics with us at neutralzonehotel.com/Discord for our permanent Discord link. If you're having a good time, thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever you need to do to say you're having a good time on the thing you're listening on. It really helps. We're on YouTube at Neutral Zone Hotel as well. And we'll be right back. All right, folks, we're back. So we are going to begin with coverage of the upcoming male tournament at the Olympics, which I've put in my notes as Olympic Man's Hockey Time, which I am like 99% sure is going to be the title of this episode.
Excellent.
I hope so.
Emily, do you want to lead us off by talking about Canada and the USA? Are you going to do USA or Canada first?
I have Canada first in my notes.
Okay, cool. I will. Yeah, let me know when you're switching over because I'll read what SJ wants me to put in.
Number 1 in your program, number 1 in your heart.
So, Canada, everyone loves to talk a big game about Canada's dominance in international hockey. And I think that may come to an end this year. Looking through the rosters, you have undeniable talent. You've got Nathan MacKinnon, you have Sidney Crosby, you've got Connor McDavid, you have Macklin Celebrini, Cale Makar, all sorts of big names. It's a very impressive forward group. It is a perfectly functional defense group. And then you get to the goalies. And you have Darcy Kemper, Logan Thompson, and Jordan Binnington. I hope for Canada's sake that they brought Jordan Binnington because they couldn't leave him off after Four Nations, but that he's not going to see a game. That would be the correct choice. However, selfishly, I hope he plays all of the games and loses them in embarrassing fashion. So I guess other things to keep in mind. There is no Connor Bedard on this roster, although there is a Macklin Celebrini. So that was something that was getting a lot of conversation in the lead up, which of these up and coming kids was going to get a roster spot. A lot of the people who were initially in the, wow, I can't believe they left this guy off the roster conversation are now on the roster because of injuries. So we do have Seth Jarvis and Sam Bennett on there. Other notable young players who aren't on the roster, Matthew Schaefer. I don't know that he ever really had a chance of being on the roster, being a rookie, but, I think it would have been cool if he was. Yeah, the Canadian forward group is incredible. With their forwards, they could theoretically outscore anybody in this tournament. It's really just, how long until Tom Wilson gets himself thrown out for an illegal hit to the head? And can any of the goalies they brought stop a beach ball?
Logan Thompson's having a really good year in advanced stats. He's
true.
One of the leaders in XGs, saved above expected. And if they turn the net over to him, I think it'll be okay. Binnington has always given me big Grant Fuhr vibes. If you get him to the big game, he'll make exactly the amount of saves you need to win. And that's kind of what happened last year. And this is not me saying play Binnington, because I think Thompson is the play. But if they do choose Binnington, I think he would be bad in the round robin. And then I think he would be pretty good in the playoffs. That's just the type of goaltender he is. And it's incumbent on the Blues to get him back into the playoffs where he'll do better, because he sure as hell does not seem to care about the regular season this year. He stinks.
No kidding. He has been so bad.
I've just got two quick things. Number one, regarding Tom Wilson. Did you know he's a point per game this year?
Yeah, he's having a good year.
Yeah, he earned a spot on that team, which is not a thing I ever expected to say.
Originally, I just thought he'd be on there for grit and sandpaper and to rough up the Tkachuk brothers, but then I saw what he was doing, not just this year, but even like the last 5. I'm like, oh, he's actually a player. He's kind of good. Okay. But also, my big thing, too, is you touched on the forward depth. When Nick Suzuki is your 5th center and Sidney Crosby is your 3rd line center, I think he might be fine. Just maybe.
I think Canada has the defensive forward depth to really slow down a lot of the attack that's coming their way. And overall, I feel like Canada is still the favorite despite goaltending challenges. I feel that it's just tough to stop McDavid at the height of his powers. Crosby, I think, is still extremely good. Celebrini obviously is excellent. And I think the defensive core is like Cale Makar is the best defenseman since Nicholas Lidstrom. And it's not particularly close, despite no offense to Quinn Hughes, but Makar one-on-one is better. So I don't know. I lean towards Canada as my favorite, but if the United States or someone else was to win, I wouldn't be shocked. Like it is going to be a tight tournament, especially amongst the top 5 teams.
Definitely. I think that it's really going to be the goaltending. Yeah. Now, into the U.S., so I guess you have a statement for us.
Yeah, so SJ is not here. They're visiting some family, but wanted me to read this statement about why they don't think USA will win. In 1980, a scrappy team of American amateurs upset the big, bad Soviets in Lake Placid. It was the best and the worst thing to happen to Americans' men's Olympic ice hockey. On one hand, it galvanized support for the sport. On the other, it cemented a roster-building philosophy at USA Hockey of grit, grinding, and toughness. In the 1980s, this made sense. But in today's world, the U.S. has access to the highly skilled players that it did not before. But instead of taking a roster filled with skill and ability and some of the greatest clutch goal scorers in the NHL with Jason Robertson and Cole Caulfield, we get grit and we get grinding. It's the miracle derangement syndrome. And the United States has not won Olympic gold since.
Bravo.
I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting a this winter.
Yeah, that's kind of the. I thought that was exactly the way SJ normally sounds.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. So that was a pretty fantastic segue into the U.S. roster. Again, there's some big names on there. There are both the Kachucks, for better or for worse. Jack Eichel. We've got 2 of the 3 Hugheses. Austin Matthews. But then you have Vincent Trocheck. And you have JT Miller, who, God forbid we leave him off the roster. I was going to disparage Brock Nelson, but he's actually been really good this year, so I'm slightly less mad about that choice than I would have been in other situations. But yeah, there was a lot of we can't bring Jason Robertson, who is a prolific goal scorer, because Bill Guerin, don't think that he backchecks enough or hits hard enough. Or we can't bring Cole Caulfield, who is, again, a phenomenal goal scorer, because he's just too small. And if you will recall back at the Four Nations, the U.S. probably could have used some people who could score goals. And they did add Tage Thompson to the roster. That was a good choice. But also, Vincent Trocheck, JT Miller, so many bad choices. They do have, at least in theory, maybe, possibly, the goaltending. Connor Hellebuck has been fine this season. He has not been the world-beating goalie he has been in the past. And also there's always the can Connor Hellebuck get it done in the big game question, which so far the answer has been a resounding no. So yeah, I mean, Jake Ottinger and Jeremy Swayman, both solid goal options. Yeah, I would say the U.S. is going to be stronger than probably most other teams. I would say they're weaker than Canada, certainly in forward, maybe on D, but a little bit deeper on defense. And the goaltending is, at least in theory, better. But I don't think the U.S. is going to steamroll their way through anybody either.
If Canada wins all their games 6-5, U.S. is the team that's going to win all their games 2-1. That's just the best summary.
I'm not sure I even trust the goaltending quite that much. They might be more like 3-2, but
I don't like taking. Obviously, I don't like taking Miller. I don't like taking Trocheck. I don't mind taking Nelson, but there are better choices, I think. But the defensive core of this group is a little frightening. I get it. You have McAvoy, you have Hughes, you have Werenski, but you should have made room for Lane Hudson. He's too good to leave off. There are players that should be on this squad that are not. Robo and Caulfield are the two others. The goaltending is very good, and all you need is one of those three guys to get hot for a few games. But I'm sorry, like the forward group is underwhelming, and you know they're going to give Matt Tkachuk too much time. You know they're going to run out JT Miller too much.
And do we even know how healthy Matthew Tkachuk is? He's been back for a couple weeks at this point, but I have, did he rush back so he could be back for the Olympics? Is he going to go down with whatever? And so then not only do you not have a relatively talented shit disturber, you just have a hole with nobody to score a goal. And it's IIHF hockey. It's not NHL hockey. So the same, physicality and shenanigans that a lot of this team is built around aren't really going to fly here.
Yeah, I encourage Team USA to get into a bunch of fights, though. I think it would be funny for them to have half their players suspended. I get the sense that this is a team that is based around the concept, like SJ says, grit, grinding, and I don't think it's going to work. I think that USA should be a gold medal threat this Olympics, and I think they are instead very much at threat of moving down to the bronze round.
I would not be surprised.
All I want now is just T-shirts that say no BADCOCHOICE capital S, no BS.
So no BS.
Little USA flag in there.
There you go. I'm going to do a quick run through of the most likely second tier teams. So starting with Czechia. Czechia is taking a pretty good contingent of North American players, but so they're taking Hronek, David Kampf, Radko Gudas, Lucas Dostal, obviously Pasternak, Martin Niches, Radek Faksa, Andre Palat, Daniel Vladar. I know I'm saying all this wrong. Sorry, guys. Karel Vejmelka, Tomáš Hertl. They've given Roman Shchevenka from Dynamo Pardubice. I don't know. They're giving him the captaincy. But let's be clear, this is a team that's based around Pasternak and Niches. And if those guys go psycho, they could power this. And Vejmelka or Vladar or Dostal, whoever. I'd probably be Dostal getting the go.
I would imagine Dostal.
Yeah.
They could goaltender their way into the Final Four easily. I think
they absolutely could.
I think they're probably the least likely threat, but that doesn't mean not a threat. That being said, Pasternak on the Olympic stage, that is marquee viewing. And
100%.
I would watch.
That is going to rock.
Yeah, I think he's going to be amazing. Even if the team itself can't get there, I think that he has a threat. He's an MVP threat for this tournament for sure. The next big sort of like the middle team would be Finland. So Finland is taking almost entirely NHL players. In fact, the only non-NHL player on the roster is Mikko Lehtinen, who used to be an NHLer, but is now playing for ZSC Lions in the Swiss League. They're taking notable players like Sebastian Aho, the forward, not the defender. They are taking Mikko Rantanen, Heiskanen, Rupe Hint, all the basically the
Dallas Stars will be there.
Yeah. They're going to have, a few other familiar faces like Teuvo Teravainen, Arturi Lehkonen, Oliver Kapanen, who's been a very good rookie for the Habs this year. This is a team that, although they have a couple high-level threats, especially that Rantanen, Hintz, Aho sort of level, this is a team that if they get it done, it's going to be a combination of depth, because they have good depth, and powerful, strong goaltending from either Lankinen or Saros. And Saros has had a rebound this year. So
I was going to say, I would trust 50% of that.
Yeah.
Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to play Korpisalo? No, of course you're not going to play Korpisalo.
Yeah, that's not really an option. So I guess you pray.
Yeah, like Justus Saros is going to be he's going to play every minute, or at least he should almost play every minute. Kevin Lankinen has not been good this season, and yes, he plays behind a bad team. I should know. I've seen a lot of it. But one of the main reasons they are where they are is because he cannot keep a puck out of his net.
One of the things to keep in mind is that Finland is in the middle of aging this generation out. They have I think it's 12, 13 players, 30 or over. And only a couple players under 20, only 3 players under 25. So this is an aging generation for Finland. They did win the gold at the 2022 non-NHL Olympics. So there is a possibility here for them to repeat, but my guess is Finland is going to be outside of the group stage, or outside of the gold medal game anyway. I think if there is a true threat to gold from this group, it is Team Sweden, which will be captained by Gabriel Landeskog. Yes.
Wendell it up.
He's back. My dad the other day was like, I sure think it's interesting that, Landeskog couldn't make it back for any games before the break, but he's ready for the Olympics. It's like, well...
You know what? Not going to lie. I thought you were about to describe Landeskog as being your dad.
No. He is younger than I am. That would be weird.
Wouldn't be... still...
This is a team that it's all NHLers. And, your headliners are guys like William Nylander. You've got Adrian Kempe, Forsberg, obviously, Jesper Bratt, Mika Zibanejad is having an okay year. Wenberg's having a very good year for a depth role. So they have a lot of top level talent, but it's going to be very interesting to see who they go with in net. Volstead and Gustafsson both are having good years for the Wild, and it's going to be an interesting show. I don't think Markstrom is playing games. He's there to be there.
Because they needed a third goalie and he can be senior leadership or whatever.
I would say that Rasmus Dahlin has a good chance to be a top defender in this tournament, especially if they pair him with Hedman or Carlson and let kind of them go. But Nylander,
that would rock.
Nylander is definitely the threat. Like, again, if Sweden wins, it would almost be certain because William Nylander goes supernova and drags them over the finish line.
I think there's some speculation that Nylander might be hurt. He missed a practice, so that'll be interesting to watch.
Do you know what his full name is?
Isn't it like
William Michael Altelius Jr. something? So it's really long.
It's a Jerome Iginla level name.
Well done, Emily.
Yes.
Go off.
William Andrew Michael Jr. Nylander Altelius.
Dang.
It's up there.
I've always had a soft spot for Sweden, and it's probably just because there's always been so many good Swedish players who play for Vancouver. I'd imagine, Emily, it's kind of the same thing for you between Landeskog and Peter Forsberg. I just hope this tournament lights a fire under Elias Pettersson. Just bring my boy back in one piece and maybe a bit better. That's all I want. But yeah, let me the Tre Kronor.
All right. Trevor, do you want to walk us through the sort of, we're not going to go through every team, but we are going to do a quick run through of a few others that have a chance to medal.
So I will start with the Edmonton Oilers, where it is Leon Draisaitl and another big name and a whole bunch of not Edmonton, Team Germany, where it is going to be Leon Draisaitl, Tim Stützle, Moritz Seider, and a bunch of randos.
Hey, people know Philip Grubauer.
Yeah, wow, that's not saying much.
JJ Peterka.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, there are some decent players in here. There's 8 NHLers, which include the aforementioned Grubauer, Seider, Draisaitl, Peterka, Nico Sturm. Other than that, it's also a few AHLers and then a bunch of guys who are playing in the DEL. This is going to be very top heavy. If anything, it's kind of going to be, I'd imagine, similar to what we're seeing in the German women's team, where there is a very good top tier of player and then a far drop. But it will be interesting to see how Draisaitl can do handling it all. And again, you got a pretty solid top unit, but USA is probably the big threat in Group C that they're in. But Latvia and Denmark, you can maybe do some damage there. But I honestly would not be surprised to see Draisaitl in the top of tournament scoring, because he's the only one putting a puck in the net for Germany.
I think that you need Draisaitl and Stützle and Seider and Grubauer to go off for Germany to get to the bronze medal level. But is Draisaitl that good? Yeah, he is. Stützle is very good, and Seider appears to be exactly, now that they've separated him from the zombified carcass of Ben Sherratt, he does seem to be as advertised. So, if you think the second best defenseman and the second best center in the NHL can move a team up the rankings, I do.
This is a country that did win silver in 2018, back when there were no NHL players. And having the NHL around is going to make it a bit harder for them, but they've got some history on their side. Let's go take us jaunt over to Switzerland, who actually have a decent contingent of NHL players. And by that, I mean half the New Jersey Devils roster. You got Siegenthaler, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, and also Nino Niederreiter, Pius Suter, Phil Kurashev, Kevin Fiala, and of course the ageless wonder Roman Josi himself. The one interesting thing for me is going to be in net, because you either have a very young Akira Schmid or two ancient guys in Redo Berra and Leonardo Giannoni. Both of which are 38, 39 years old.
Berra has some NHL games, right?
Yeah. Giannoni's been constant for the Swiss Olympic team for years. I believe he's the one who... Oh, wait, no, that was Jonas Hiller. But he's been, I think, since 2014. He's been around for a while. But so they've got some good depth. They got good players, but not a whole lot of high end outside of maybe Fiala, Hischier. Fiala, Hischier, Meier, that could be a decent first line, but that's not exactly going to have that high-end talent that you're really hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I have the note here somewhere, especially in Group A, where, you've got France, but you also have Czechia, who we've established is going to be great, especially with Pasternak. So, your top line, Hischier, Fiala, etc., versus David Pasternak. Yeah, I'm going to take Czechia every time. And then, of course, Canada. So it's going to be a rough one for Switzerland, but we'll see what they can do.
As a reminder, folks, everyone makes at least the playoffs. So the winner of each group will advance to the quarterfinals, and the top-ranked second-place team will get a bye as well. And then the other 8 teams will be seeded into playoffs. They will play off, and then they'll go up and face the 4 teams that got a bye. So everyone goes to the knockout round. But getting a bye is really important, and Switzerland, I think, is almost guaranteed to not.
Yeah, it's kind of... a bit of a group of death with Canada and Czechia there, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
As opposed to Group C, which is not like it's United States, Germany, Latvia, and Denmark. Ugh.
But if you want a group that's potentially a group of death, the last one I've got on the list is Slovakia. Got Group B, which is Italy. Yeah, but you also have Sweden and Finland in that group. So,
Ooh, yeah, they're not going to have a good time.
there are only 7 NHLers on this roster, but I should be remiss considering they are going to be led by Juraj Slafkovsky. So that'll be good in that regard. But after that, the NHL talent is you got Pavel Regenda, Martin Pospisil, Simone Nemec, Eric Chernak, and Martin Ferivari. But of course, we'd be remiss to talk about their captain, former NHLer, Tomasz Tatar. I just wanted to get that reference in there.
Get the meme in.
Of course.
Juraj Slafkovsky was recently named Slovakia's most popular famous person. So, and he's a great player. He's handsome. He's young. He's outspoken, especially around the state of hockey. Slovakia is a country that is recovering after a long period of disinvestment in the game of hockey, which is why you've got so many of their top players, Nemec, Slafkovsky, Dvorsky. So many of them are under 20. Well, they're all 21 or younger. And then a lot of their old guard is in their mid 30s. So this is definitely a team that's seeing generational change. And hopefully Slovakia has a bunch more young players up and coming.
Yeah.
Because they have definitely slipped, I think, internationally. But Slafkovsky is really good, and hopefully this is a torn. He's been very good the last few months in the NHL, and again, a guy that has a chance to be a top player in this tournament.
It'll be really fun to see him play.
100%.
And I think he may be in sort of the Draisaitl situation where he's going to be the only guy who's putting pucks in the net.
The other interesting thing, too, is I was reading a couple articles when I had some free time today, and apparently the main Slovakian goalie is like a 21-year-old playing in the NCAA. Like, he's probably going to be their starter. So that'll be definitely something to keep an eye on.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam Gajan.
Yeah.
Gajan. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, Slafkovsky has put up 21 goals, 24 points so far, 24 assists so far this year in 57 games, which is obviously not superstar numbers, but
not bad.
Pretty good. I mean, he's still only 21.
Yeah.
The other thing to point out, too, with Slovakia is they are the defending bronze medalists. And again, this is when there was a tournament that did not have any NHL players, so there is always that asterisk there. But some of those guys do have that experience, and they got something to fight for. So they could be scrappy. We will see.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting tournament. Any final thoughts on the tournament?
It's been 12 years since we had NHL players here. And as we're talking about getting to see these guys in international play, I thought I was hyped before, and I'm ready to run through a wall to get it here earlier. I'm so excited for them to drop the puck.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
I think hockey is at its best when its best players can participate on its biggest stages. And that's regardless of the stage or the gender of the players or the age, you know? The Olympics is the biggest stage for sport. And ice hockey is the marquee event of the Olympics in a way that even basketball isn't for the Summer Olympics, right? Like as big as basketball is, especially now, the 100-meter dash kind of remains the key event. But for hockey, or for the Winter Olympics, the ice hockey tournament is the big thing. And we are all luckier when players named Crosby and Matthews and Slafkovsky and Draisaitl and Aho and Carlson can all play, right? Like that is a much better showcase for this sport. People will be tuning in who don't watch the game of hockey, and I want them to see the best players in the world.
Yeah.
I want them to see disgusting plays. I want them to see Makar feeding Crosby I want them to see the Tkachuk brothers beating the crap out of someone and then getting kicked out. And then I want to see Slavkovsky blow past a player, knock some guy out his ass, score an amazing goal. I want to showcase this incredible sport. And you need the best players in the world to do that. And that's what we have. All right, folks. So we do have one more segment for you. We are going to be starting a recurring section on the podcast examining a very famous person from hockey history. So this is called Hockey's Greatest Bastards. It's about Alan Eagleson, who is the founder of the NHLPA, the first real agent in the game of hockey, and the first executive director of Hockey Canada. And it's about how he basically screwed over every hockey player for 25 years. It's going to be a multi-part series. We've already recorded 5 parts, and I think there's 2 more to record. So it's going to be playing at the end of episodes. You don't have to tune in, but I would really appreciate it. And I would love your feedback if you want to jump on the Discord. I did all the research for this. It took me a long time. If you want to jump on the Discord at neutralzonehotel.com/Discord and talk about it, I would love to hear your thoughts. So we're going to cut over to that now. Hey, folks, thanks so much for tuning into this special presentation called Hockey's Greatest Bastards. We're talking about Alan Eagleson, who ran the NHLPA from 1967 until 1991. And this is a story. This is like, I'm going to tell you a story. It's based on the podcast Behind the Bastards, hosted by Robert Evans, which is an excellent podcast that I recommend you check out. But Robert Evans is never going to do the people who have made the game of hockey really screwed up. So I thought maybe I could do that. And there's some really weird stuff in here, some funny stuff, and just some horrible crimes. Eventually we'll talk about some hockey injuries. I don't want anyone to think that's not going to happen. But other than that, we should be pretty good. Joining me today so far is Trevor.
What's up?
I've got Madison.
Hello.
And of course, the person who always has to listen to me rant about hockey history, it's SJ.
Hi.
I trapped you in a little car with me last year and made you listen to all my nonsense. So
it was okay. Except for the fog.
The fog was frightening. So when this is all said and done, I will post the script to the website and anyone can come and take a look at it. I do want to take a quick moment to thank a few of the primary sources. So Deidre Clayton, who's a Canadian journalist, wrote a book in 1980 called Eagle, The Life and Times of our Alan Eagleson. This book was originally authorized and Eagleson pulled his authorization for it. The next book was David Cruz and Allison Griffiths, who are a husband and wife journalist team, wrote a book called Net Worth, Exploding the Myths of Pro Hockey. I strongly recommend anyone read this book. It was incredible. I learned a lot. The next book is by William Houston and David Schultz called Eagleson, Fall of a Hockey Czar, which is based on Eagleson losing his reputation. I also used Alan Eagleson's own memoir, Power Play Memoirs of a Hockey Czar, that he wrote with Scott Young. And the kind of the coup de grace here was done by Russ Conway, who was the hockey beat writer for the Lawrence Eagle Tribune for 30 years. He wrote a book called Game Misconduct, Alan Eagleson and the Corruption of Hockey, and is the person single-handedly most responsible for Eagleson going to prison. So there's a little bit of a happy ending. I also want to thank Ottawa citizen writer Bruce Dalbigan, who wrote The Defense Never Rests, which is less about Eagleson and more about the pension plan, and we'll talk about the pension plan in detail someday. But there are a total of 30 sources, but those are some of the big ones and the ones I'll be quoting from most often. Any questions before we kick this off?
Nope.
No, I just think it's really funny he calls himself a hockey czar.
That's just kind of the nickname he picked up in the press. And it's because he did all the stuff with the Russian series in 72. So they kind of put that together. But he really was a czar. And we're going to talk about that because for a period of time, Alan Eagleson was the most powerful man in hockey. So we look at the modern hockey world, and we would generally assume the most powerful person in the game today is Gary Bettman. But Bettman, to an extent, does not have the same strengths and power that Eagleson had at his peak. At the top of his strength, Alan Eagleson represented over half of NHL players as their agent. He spoke for the rest as the executive director of the NHLPA, and he was the executive director of the board of Hockey Canada, directly responsible for international hockey's kind of growth in the 70s and 80s. He took over production of its greatest event to the time, the Canada Cup. Eagleson was personal friends with the president of the NHL and the chairman of the NHL Board of Governors. He was close with multiple owners and general managers around the league. He got people hired and fired, signed, cut, and traded. He controlled insurance payouts and collaborated with the league to defraud the players of their pension. And he controlled huge amounts of players' money that he put to his own use.
He sounds like a great guy.
Stand-up human being.
Oh, yeah, just a lovely fellow. Lovely fellow. How Alan Eagleson got this much sway within hockey is just an incredible tale of how this one guy exploits the good nature of athletes and pulled the wool over the eyes of a country thirsty for international hockey dominance. He parlayed personal friendships into power and wealth, and he built an empire. And he ruled his fiefdoms as an emperor would, which is why the name Tsar is so appropriate. His downfall comes less swift than you would hope because he has so many favors to cash in, but he does eventually go to prison because of the work of some of his former friends, a Boston-based reporter, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So the FBI gets to be the good one and the good guys in this story.
Weird.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah, like strangely, that this is the one thing, like financial crimes is the one thing they're sometimes okay at.
Yeah, ask Al Capone.
Yeah, exactly. So Eagleson was born on April 24th, 1933. He was the first generation of his family born in Canada. His parents, James Allen Eagleson and Agnes Janes McNabney, emigrated to Canada from Northern Ireland when the textile industry collapsed during the Great Depression. He was raised with 3 siblings, 2 older sisters and a younger brother, in a strict Protestant household. From an early age, Allen was taught the rule of potatoes and pointing. Has anyone heard of this rule?
No.
Nope.
What?
It was a Protestant ritual where food would be served at dinner time and everyone would be given potatoes to eat, but only the people who directly contributed to the household, like financially, could get meat. Everyone else could have all the pointing at the meat they want, but they wouldn't be allowed to have the meat unless they were bringing in money.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I have not heard of this, and I'm Irish, and thank God.
This is the first time I'd heard of it. So the lesson was pretty clear to Alan: be a breadwinner, make the money, or else.
You mean be a meat winner?
Be a meat win the money, then you don't just point at the meat; you eat the meat. Don't be a meat pointer. I think that's the lesson here.
Be a meat eater.
Be a
This
meat
seems
eater.
like a great way to have your children be malnourished.
Yes, also that.
Guess who was undersized for a lot of his life and only started to get big once he started bringing in money, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Alan internalized this message, and by a very young age, he was looking for how he would become a breadwinner. He told his mother, when she asked what he wanted to do when he grew up, he said, when I grow up, this is a quote from his mother, when I grow up, I'm going to become a minister, only I won't make sermons. I'll just take the collection and leave.
What has to be wrong with a person to think these things at such a young age?
See, the worst part, yeah, you say that, and yet I can't help but look at a lot of current climate and wonder how many other people had this same idea.
Fascinating.
His mother's credo for her son was do what you do best, which is absolutely something that Alan Eagleson would do. As he moved through grade school, he remained undersized, loudmouth, and brainy, which you know what that means. He got bullied. He did.
Yeah.
He did
Same.
swim.
Hard same.
Yeah, but I didn't defraud NHL players of millions of dollars.
I didn't.
No, neither did I. I mean, not that I wouldn't, but
Alan liked to swim, and at an early age, he used swimming, saw sport as a way to make a tidy profit. So when the bus picked up the kids from his town to go to their swim lessons at Humberside Collegiate Pool, Eagleson would collect the fees for the bus, 10 cents per week per kid. If someone forgot their money or spent it in advance, he'd smooth it over the first time with the driver. He never lost track of the debts, never let anyone's tab run up. His mother told Deidre Clayton he was a regular little monopolizer. If a kid showed up without his money a second time, Alan took it upon himself not to let him get on the bus. No one says it, but I think we can assume that there's a little bit extra coming in for Alan. Another similar scheme he set up when he went to university, Eagleson and his compatriots bought a 1952 Chevy and decided to raffle it off with the proceeds going to build a pool for the Lakeshore Swim Club so they didn't have to bus back and forth to Humberside, which presumably is because Alan didn't need to anymore and he, wasn't getting his money. This is notable for two reasons. The first being that the raffle was illegal. You can't just raffle off cars without getting a lottery license. And I'm going to quote from his book here for the second. This is the scam. I'd park the car someplace busy, especially on Saturdays and holidays, and maybe 2 or 3 of us would sell tickets beside the car. We were selling hundreds of dollars worth a week. The tickets were $0.25 each, or a book of 5 for $1. I had to turn in $1 for every 5 tickets sold. If I sold 5 tickets singly at $0.25, I could keep the 5th quarter myself. I tried hardest to sell single tickets because I didn't make a nickel for selling a book of 5.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Isn't that incredible? Like he's already honed in on, if I act like I'm doing charity, I can twist the margins and come up with some cash for me.
How old was he when he did this?
He went to university, so he graduated early. He worked for 3 years, and he went to university at around age 18 to 19.
Yeah, this does sound like something the students I work with would do. Not all of them, but like someone in college. This sounds right to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So by the time he got to the University of Toronto to take his undergrad, Alan had finally reached physical maturity. He had been bullied for being too small, but he was now 5'10", strong, and in good shape due to his years of swimming. His favorite sport to play at this time became lacrosse. And like many who get big after being small, he had no problem with physicality. After losing a game where he'd worked his butt off, Eagleson was not happy, so he faked exhaustion to sucker in a player from the other team. Once the player leaned in close to taunt Eagleson, after Eagleson kind of looked at him and went, "Hey, just go fuck yourself," Alan waited for him to get close, jumped up, grabbed him by the head, and started smashing him against a locker.
What the
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the old territory special.
Yes.
That's truly like deranged behavior.
Oh, his deranged behavior, like he physically always was willing to threaten a confrontation. His lacrosse team wanted a court that was being used by basketball players, so he yelled at them. He called them all the F slur and said, "Leave the court." When one basketball player challenged him by saying, "Show us your proof, your permit to use the court," Eagleson punched him in the mouth as hard as he could and said, "There's your permit." This is college age.
Wow.
What a delight.
So you see, this is a guy who really wants to get his own way, but it's not just through punching, right? So even though he was having conflicts with those intramural basketball players, he also jockeyed for the position of manager of the University of Toronto intercollegiate team. In order to get the job, he followed a classic playbook, sucked up to the boss. He showed off that he knew how to stretch a buck or two. He booked their hotels, did all the grunt work. He even cleaned Jim McManus's furnace. Jim McManus called him a belligerent little rooster, but gave him the job anyway. So among the perks, and probably the reason why Eagleson wanted the job, was there was a 26-day training camp in Florida for the basketball team. Eagleson would see to the hotel and what the team needed, and what do a bunch of young men on vacation in Florida need more than anything else?
Condoms.
Well, that too, but
Booze.
first they need the party at which the people show up to fuck, right?
Oh, okay.
So he would literally go out to the beach and go up to young people, teenagers, college age people, and say, "Hey, we're doing a party with the University of Toronto basketball team. If you pay $1, you can come." He'd get 40 or 50 people to give him $1, tell them to show up at the party, and this being the 50s, go back and spend $20 on booze and chips and stuff, and boom, there's a party. And guess who walks away with the extra? It's Alan Eagleson.
It's kind of a sweet gig, actually. Like, I do kind of got to hand it to him on that one.
It's not a bad idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
but again, he's like exploiting these athletes. He's just assuming they're never going to ask these questions. He also put his physicality to service. So this is a quote from Net Worth. During a close game against Queen's University, the trombonist and the pep band continually spoiled the Toronto players' foul shots with perfectly timed blasts. So imagine that. They're lining it up and you just hear the...
As is the prerogative of any trombone player.
Are they allowed to do that? Eagleson asked McManus. Nope, McManus replied. I'll go over and speak to the referee. The appeal failed, and the next time a Toronto player stepped up to the foul line, the trombone again sounded. I'll go and have a word with him now, Eagleson said. He walked over and without a word knocked the musician into the next section. He just walked over to a trombonist in the middle of a game and socked him out.
I'm not sure how he did not end up getting hit by a trombone.
Or like in jail off of all this assault.
That's insane.
Sucker punch. Probably didn't see it coming.
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna casually assault this person.
It was the 50s. Shit like this happened all the time. A couple other scams to the basketball team. When the team got stuck on a snowbound train near Christmas, he arranged the team into impromptu carolers on the train to gather donations for charity. And of course, those donations never saw charity. At the airport, he had a cab budget. So he would go to the end of the beginning of the cab line, put 4 players into the cab, which was the most you could put in. And as it worked its way through the line, he would have 2 more players waiting to jump in just before the cab he was supposed to take off. So that way he could save the taxi money, which of course he probably pocketed. He just had a way of finding ways to abuse goodwill in these systems. He's very good at it.
It's just so brazen, though. Like, you would think that people would catch on.
Every time I tell you about one of his scams, you're going to be like, how did people not go, what the fuck is going on? Like, when I start talking about his shell corporations and the businesses he builds, it's so blatant. It doesn't make any sense that he gets away with it, but he did for years and years and years. So eventually he graduates from University of Toronto, University College, and went on to what was then the new University of Toronto Law School. At the time, only Upper Canada College could graduate people with JDs in Ontario. That's since changed, but at the time, and Upper Canada College is now part of U of T. But this new law school was a bit of a rogue agent. The unusual outcome of this was a law class that felt the world was against them. And this is where he made a lot of friends who would keep showing up. Of course, the grift also continued. When he was at law school, he got a job as an usher at the U of T football games. They gave him an armband. So he could, bring people in and out and show them to their seats. What he did with it was he went over to the wall after he got in the game, and he would throw the armband over the wall. And one of his friends would pick up the armband and walk in because they have an usher armband. And they do that over and over until all his friends were in the game.
That's also kind of sick. I do have to hand it to him on that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Also at one of these games, he met his future wife, Nancy Elizabeth Fisk. True to form, he met her by stealing her hat and forcing her to chase him.
Don't love that.
Oh. No.
67 years later, they are still married.
It's like The Notebook.
I mean, Eagleson's Canadian. Ryan Gosling is Canadian.
Coincidence?
I think not. So lacrosse brought Alan closer to someone else that was important in his life journey, a guy named Bob Pulford. Pulford, get used to this name. Pulford and Eagleson were the stars of the Woodbridge Dodgers lacrosse team. They had many victories. They had known each other for a lot of years. They played lacrosse during their youth. And Eagleson continued to play alongside Pulford during his law school years. Bob Pulford was a unique person. He was a 2-sport athlete. His other sport was hockey, where he had already won 3 Memorial Cups as a member of the Toronto Marlboros. Yes, like the smoke.
What a name.
That's why they're called the Marlies.
Oh my gosh, that's what.
Wait,
sorry,
so
this is news to me.
junior hockey at the time?
At the time, it was junior hockey. The Marlboroughs were owned. They were part of the Ontario League and were owned by the Maple Leafs as their primary feeder team.
Huh.
So Bob Pulford
Was like, did the AHL not exist or something?
It did, but it didn't work in the same way.
Okay.
Like affiliate, it wasn't like affiliates and stuff. We'll talk a little bit about it later on. But yeah, Bob Pulford was a Toronto Maple Leaf. He made his debut in 1956. Just because he went to law school, though, didn't mean his temper went away. Allen made friends with one of his lecturers, a guy named Bob McKay. Sometimes he would give Allen a drive to school. At one time, he recalled another car passed McKay rapidly, zoomed past him, but didn't get too far ahead. When they stopped by the guy at a light, Eagleson jumped out of the car and started slamming on the guy's window. And then when he jumped back in the car, he yelled at McKay to flee. Boy, did I ever go, McKay recalled.
What the hell?
That's wow.
Deranged behavior.
Truly.
When a guy taunted Eagleson during a dance he was attending with Nancy, Allen sucker punched the guy in the middle of the conversation, knocked him clean out. He ran into the student later in the bathroom washing up, and he said, "Hey, what happened to you?" The student said he lied about how the fight had happened, saying someone kicked him in the head when he was on the ground. Eagleson grabbed him and threatened him with his fist. "This is what kicked you in the face," he yelled.
I can't.
I kind of have to respect the cojones, but oh my good lord.
I can't decide which part of that story is more deranged. The initial assault or the follow-up?
Yeah, I think the follow-up for sure.
It's the initial assault is... The initial assault is deranged. The balls to do the second part is again deranged, but in like almost a cool way.
No, I don't think it's. No. Okay.
Certainly fascinating.
He went out of his way to make sure that this guy acknowledged the fact that he had been sucker punched. Like, he didn't just want to beat the kid, he wanted to grind it down into his face.
Yeah.
And again, that is a pattern we're going to see. Eagleson didn't just like to win, he liked to crush his enemies. He wanted them broken. So in 1959, he is called to the bar. He was a lawyer officially at last. At age 26, he joined a law firm as a partner with JDW Cumberland. Eagleson worked the night courts, and I'm quoting from Power Play again. Night court is a special kind of atmosphere, small cases involving things like traffic tickets. If there's any chance of making $1 or $2, I deal with anybody. Give me half the face value of the ticket, I'd say to some guy. If I lose, I'll pay the ticket, and if I win, I keep what you give me. So if it's a $10 ticket, the person would hand over $5. If I won, I'd keep the $5. I didn't lose too many. If I did lose, I usually pled the ticket down so that I could pay the fine with my original half, and it wouldn't cost me anything.
I mean, that's just how lawyers work.
It is.
I was going to say, that may just be, I don't know if that's anything to write home about.
No, it's not. But this is also how he meets a lot of Maple Leafs.
At night court?
Bob Pulford would tell him to go and represent his friends on the Maple Leafs whenever they got tickets. Because they got a lot of tickets because they were a bunch of stupid-ass hockey players.
Some things
Are
never
they crashing
change.
into Tim Hortons on a regular basis, or is that just certain hockey players?
this is before.
I'm pretty sure Tim Horton might have also still been
Tim
alive.
Horton is actually one of those hockey players.
Incredible news!
Yeah, so the Defense Never Rests by Dowbiggin is about the men from the Maple Leafs who eventually challenged the NHL pension plan, and they talk a lot about Tim Horton and what happened to him. It's also kind of just Bruce Dowbiggin's excuse to profile a bunch of his favorite Maple Leafs when he was a kid. But yeah, Horton never really got involved with Eagleson that much, but he was definitely part of the original group that Eagleson ingratiates himself with.
Huh.
So in 1960, Allen and Nancy married. Allen claims that he'd only made $2,000 in his first year as a lawyer and that Nancy was the breadwinner. I don't believe that for a minute. They had 2 children, Trevor Allen in 1961. Trevor Allen, by the way, I found this out yesterday. He's in the Panama Papers.
Like father, like son.
That is a rough blow to old Trevor's everywhere. Gosh,
Jill died in 2021 of cancer. She was, we'll talk a little bit about her, a little bit involved in her father's schemes. But after her father went to prison, she became a philanthropist and eventually spent many years advocating for cancer charities, and then eventually died of the disease herself. So Eagleson left Cumberland the same year to join a law firm with two lacrosse buddies from law school, Bob Watson and Ray Smella. The new law firm was Blaney, Pasternak, Smella, Eagleson, and Watson. It was didn't do well. They reported the average weekly salary was $75. Perhaps the reason Allen decided to move to a young firm after making partner with an established lawyer was because he felt he could bring more to a new partnership. Specifically, in 1959, he had formed the first of his many investment companies, the Blue and White Investment Group. This included some business friends, two of the future partners in Blaney Pasternak, and Allen's old friend Bob Pulford. Pulford brought in some of his new pals, some other Toronto Maple Leafs, Billy Harris, Bobby Baun, and Carl Brewer. The Blue and White Investment Group was primarily interested in real estate, and that's what became Eagleson's area of expertise in the new law firm. So you can see here, he's using his network. He's expanding his network. He's getting some other hockey players under his control. And especially Bobby Baun and Carl Brewer become Eagleson antagonists later on, especially Carl Brewer. But at this point, they don't know any better, and they want to be represented by a lawyer. They don't want to do things the way that were always done, where they negotiate their stuff kind of directly with a general manager or owner who's just going to fuck them. Because they were fucking them.
Having an agent wasn't like every player didn't have an agent at this point.
No one had an agent at this point. So, for example, eventually, Carl Brewer asks Eagleson to represent him in their negotiations with Punch Imlock, that's a name Trevor should be familiar with. He was longtime coach GM of the Leafs, famous hard ass, hated Alan Eagleson.
Couldn't you blame him? And
he refused to talk to Eagleson, so Pulford actually leaves the NHL. Like, not even joking. Eagleson remained with Blaney Pasternak until 1975 when he ended his partnership. During his 15 years with the firm, Allen relied on his partners for assistance with many areas of his budding business enterprises and personal endeavors. Pasternak and Watson helped write speeches for Allen's political campaigns. Bob Watson told Deidre Clayton, "We literally subsidized him for several years while he did virtually everything but practice law." When Allen left Blaney Pasternak... Oh, yeah. Absolutely, he used the shit out of them. When he left Blaney Pasternak, he claimed that organizing the Canada Cup was taking him away from the practice of law, but Bill McMurtry, leader of the litigation department at that company in 1980, saw it otherwise. Eagleson might have been producing half of what others were over the years, but he was very equally paid. He started to see things taking off, and he left, taking all his clients with him. He told Bob Watson he felt Blaney Pasternak had gotten too large. By the time he left, over 40 lawyers were employed there, and Eagleson claimed he felt some of the newcomers were too disrespectful. This included Bill McMurtry, whose brother was the Attorney General of Ontario, and got him to write a report called Investigation and Inquiry into Violence in Amateur Hockey, that concluded that the influence of professional hockey, with its emphasis on winning and use of violence as a tactical instrument to achieve that goal, was a primary cause of violence in the amateur sport across Canada. That report's from 1974. So things really didn't change.
Nope.
Eagleson, who at the time was representing players as the head of the union, said, "Here we go again. It's not as bad as Bill suggests." I think the NHL and the NHLPA are going to be everyone's favorite whipping boys in these things. But so I think it's disloyalty in the law firm that causes him to jump ship.
I mean, he also wasn't doing anything to earn loyalty, so it's like, well, I'm sorry, the loyalty has to be one way or I'm out.
But partners are equals, right? So Bob Watson and Ray Smella were his law school friends, but they were his equals. So when he moves to his new law firm, he founds the law firm with the son of a friend of his, and he employs just all these lackeys. It's basically, even though it's a partnership, there's a king. There's a king there. So I think that's what it was. He just did not like that he didn't have absolute control.
Yeah.
So another thing we have to talk on is his political career. In the early to mid 60s, Allen saw his political career being in politics. Trevor, can you guess which party he was a member of?
It wouldn't happen to be the Conservative Party of Canada, is it?
A member of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada, whose political hero was John Diefenbaker.
Huh. Oh, boy.
Diefenbaker had defeated Louis Saint Laurent's government in 1957 to become the first PC prime minister since the middle of the Great Depression. So literally since Allen was 2, the Liberals had run the country. So in 1962, he attended a speech from Diefenbaker and met his local MP, John Hamilton. Hamilton was facing active Toronto Maple Leafs player Red Kelly in the upcoming election, and Eagleson volunteered to canvass for Hamilton, getting his boots wet. Hamilton lost by just under 4,000 votes, and future Hockey Hall of Famer and active Toronto Maple Leaf player Red Kelly became a member of Parliament.
Well,
How does that even work? Like,
Well, I mean, he was a Toronto Maple Leaf running in Toronto.
well, no. I understand how he won. I just mean, like, how did he do it?
I mean, and it's not like being a hockey player was a full-time job.
Yeah, like this is like still in the era when like guys would be working construction in summertime or go back to work on the farm,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh, okay.
So Eagleson's enthusiasm was noted, and when the Diefenbaker ministry fell in 1963, they asked him to run against Red Kelly. The riding needs a member who actually lives and works among us, not some important name figure, Eagleson was quoted as saying. The Leafs, who were part of the Blue and White investment group, supported Eagleson, as did part owner Harold Ballard, who we're going to do one of these on.
Oh, no.
Red Kelly was dismissive of Eagleson. I'm quoting from Red Kelly's book here. Yeah, there was a small group siding with him, meeting with him, which was slightly upsetting, recalled Red. Whatever Eagleson said about me was like water falling off a duck as far as I was concerned. He'd be in a room and he'd be telling you the sun was shining, and when you opened the blinds, it would be pitch black. It didn't matter to him. He'd say anything to sway voters. Eagleson proved Kelly ready to debate when Kelly was late arriving because he was campaigning with Paul Martin Sr. He told them, Red Kelly's not going to appear. He's been gagged by the Liberal Brain Trust, which just tells you the Conservatives haven't changed in 60 years.
Woke mind virus.
When Kelly did make it to the event, he showed up late. He showed up Eagleson very easily. I was told I'm getting pretty hard, he said. The attendees laughed. Perhaps it was the popularity of Lester Pearson, or it was the star power of Red Kelly, or just Alan Eagleson being Alan Eagleson. But he lost the election by a much wider margin than John Hamilton had. 24,500 votes separating them. If Allen had doubled his total of 16,500, he still would have lost by twice as much as the previous PC.
This man seems like he probably has like negative charm, but at the same time, he managed to scam so many people, so that couldn't possibly be true.
He doesn't have negative charm. He has... If he thinks he can get you on his side, he can be oily and kiss up to you. And that works for a lot of people, especially a lot of journalists. Yeah. The amount of legendary Hockey Hall of Fame journalists that he loved him, staggering.
Yeah.
But if you were not on his good side, he was just a piece of shit to you, and he would just... Well, and of course, he could intimidate people. He was a very intimidating man. And I'm talking about, like, intimidating professional hockey players.
He did seem super violent.
We'll talk about that down the road a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to get through his politics, and we'll take our first break.
All right.
So Alan Eagleson did not concede the election. As you know, you're supposed to call up and concede the election.
It's only polite.
I never heard a peep from Eagleson that night. Not a word, Red recalled. He never called, conceded, said congratulations, nothing. He was not in the same class as John Hamilton had been the election before, that's for sure. I respected Hamilton. I was so proud of my team. They'd worked their butts off. I couldn't say enough about them, but I couldn't join the celebrations that night because we opened the Stanley Cup final against Detroit the next night. I had to get home to bed.
What a guy.
I let that quote run a little long just because it's so funny that he just kicks Alan Eagleson's ass and he goes off to win the fucking Stanley Cup. That's great.
King shit. Like, what a day. What a crazy 48 hours for this guy.
Eagleson's sacrificial role in that election got him noticed enough by the Ontario Progressive Conservatives to be offered a shot to win at Queen's Park, which is what we call the little parliament for Ontario.
Wait.
1960.
He got his butt kicked so hard that his party was like, we got to give him another shot at a different role.
Well, they're conservatives.
It's also going from federal to provincial, right? It's still a bit of a step down.
Yeah, so he ran in Lakeshore, which is a traditionally conservative riding, versus the York West riding, which is pretty working class. Using his contacts, Eagleson got a local lacrosse team to assist him in handing out pamphlets, knocking on doors. He promised to buy them ice cream at the end of the day. Alan Eagleson never showed up at the local Dairy Queen to make good on his promise, but he did win the election.
It is nice to know that ice cream still works on people of that age, because I'm going to be honest, you bribe me with ice cream, I'll do it.
I just can't imagine how petty you have to be to not follow through on the ice cream.
To not give the children the ice cream you promised them?
Right?
Also, children,
deeply immoral.
okay. Because I was going to be I would not vote for this person, but yeah, I guess if they're kids, they can't really do that.
So Alan Eagleson's time at Queen's Park was spent as a loudmouth backbencher. Perhaps true to form, he didn't care so much about alienating the other MPPs, members of provincial parliament, both from the other parties and his own. In his memoir, he recalled his two primary issues were allowing interfaith adoption, so allowing a Catholic to adopt a Protestant and vice versa, which was illegal in Ontario before Alan Eagleson and some others worked to pass a law that made it legal. And he also worked on modernizing Ontario's divorce laws, which are good things to do. These are things that I don't think were bad.
Sure.
His stance on both issues went against the premier's official policies and may have kept him out of cabinet. He was swept out of office in 1967 and realized that the electoral game was not for him. So why not become someone who controls the game? In 1969, he ran to be president of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. If you can't win, choose the people who are running. His campaign for the role was run by former broadcaster Arthur Harnett, who would become a close Eagleson ally. Alan won, became the president of the PCs. He would control fundraising and other similar efforts until 1976. His first thing he did, create a new full-time paid position called executive director and hire Arthur Harnett into the role. We don't know anything about what he actually did. No one's talking, but I think we know the types of networks he was building.
Shady ones.
Yeah, oh yeah. The most important thing that happened to Eagleson through politics wasn't related to the government or the Progressive Conservatives at all. In 1964, another Tory MPP, Alistair Johnson, asked Eagleson to come to his riding of Parry Sound and attend a banquet and bring one of his Maple Leafs friends along, This is kind of how Eagleson trades favors. He's like, you want to hang out with me? I'll bring Bob Pulford from the Maple Leafs, or I'll bring Bobby Bond from the Maple Leafs.
Was he still acting as an agent for these players at this time? Or this is before?
This is before he creates Sports Management, his agency business, but he's still informally representing them from time to time. This is kind of how he gets his real start in the agency business. So...
you said the town of Parry Sound? I know.
You know where this is going.
I know where this is going.
So Eagleson brought Carl Brewer, and they met a young man at the banquet, 16 years old, who was the captain of his kids' baseball team that was being honored at the banquet. Alan had met the kid's father 10 years ago playing fastball when Alan was 20 and running recreational sports in the town of McTier. It turned out that the young man, the baseball player, also played hockey, and he was pretty good. He was good enough that some NHL teams were interested in him. And his dad suggested that maybe, just maybe, Alan Eagleson would think about representing the young fellow. So as you've probably surmised, that young baseball player was Bobby Orr.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is where Alan Eagleson goes from being kind of a small-time greaseball to...
big-time greaseball.
The floodgates getting opened up. So... this is how the big time gets started. So I think we'll take a quick break here. So folks, if you're listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate you letting me walk you through some hockey history. We're going to go back to the main show now. But you can tune in next time. We will have the next part of this. So thanks everyone. Take care.
Bye.
should all say goodbye as well.
Oh, yeah. Later.
Bye. Oh my God. I am so sorry. My cat is so annoying.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that insert. There'll be more of it next week, regardless of if you enjoyed it. But for now, you've been listening to the Neutral Zone Hotel, which is written, hosted, and produced by us, the Neutral Zone Hotel crew. You can find out more at neutralzonehotel.com/Discord to join our Discord. We're on Bluesky, neutralzonehotel.bsky.social. We're on YouTube at Neutral Zone Hotel. And thank you so much for listening. If you had a great time, thumbs up, 5 stars, do what you need to do to say you like the show. We'll talk to you soon.